Lesson 11 and Lesson 12 I'm combining because they're very, very similar to each other. And they're talking about how we're going to develop rules for multiplying and dividing assigned numbers. The objective today, I will demonstrate my mathematical ability to utilize the rules for multiplication and division of signed numbers and give real-world examples through class discussion. Let's go ahead and see how we're going to get started. Okay, so the first set of numbers we're going to look at is if I have both positive numbers. So I have A times B. A times B, or a positive times a positive, I'm going to get a positive answer. Well, let's look, because this is something you already know. 4 times 3 is 12. 2 times 6 is 12. Okay, well that's pretty easy. Well, if it works the same way for multiplication, let's look at division. Well, a negative divided by a positive divided by a can't talk today. A positive divided by a positive, my answer is also going to be a positive. Okay? 48 divided by 6 is 8. Okay? 24 divided by 8 is 3, and they're both positive. This is nothing different than what you've already done when we've talked about positive and negative numbers, and as far as multiplying and dividing so far. Now, if we're looking at positive numbers, the next slide is going to show us negative numbers. So let's go ahead and see what happens when we deal with negative numbers. Here we go. Now we're going to look at some negative numbers. The rule is with negatives that if I have an even number of signs, my answer is going to be positive. Okay? Well, how many signs do I have here? I have 2. So, the rule then, this would be a positive answer. Okay? Negative 4 times a negative 2 is a negative 8. Well, how does that work? Because remember, I'm going to take negative 4 and I'm going to multiply it by itself, or I'm going to add it again to itself. So negative 4 plus a negative 4, I'm going to get a negative 8. Okay? Negative 3 times a negative 5 is going to be a negative 15. Here again I have 1, 2, negative signs. 2 is even. So therefore my answer is going to be positive. I need to change this. Okay. Now, it works the same for division. A negative divided by a negative is also going to equal a positive. You're going to find out the rules for multiplication and division are very similar. If I have an even number of signs, my answer will be positive. Negative 42 divided by a negative 7 is going to be a positive 6. Okay, and negative 42 divided by, this should be a negative 3. Okay, well, let's figure that out. So I come over here, 42 divided by 3. 3 goes into 4 once. Okay, and subtract that down. 3 goes into 12 4 times. So my answer is 14. I have 2 negatives here, so it is a positive answer. So with negative numbers, you have to look at the amount of signs. And if it's an even number, 0, 2, 4, 6, and so on, it's going to be positive. Let's see what it looks like if we have an uneven number. Well, on the last slide, I told you guys that if I had an even number of negative signs, the answer is going to be positive. Well, now I'm going to tell you if it has an odd number of signs, let's change this, an odd number of signs, that my answer is going to be negative. Okay? It's going to work that always. So I have 1 negative here. So A times a negative B, my answer will be a negative answer. So I have a negative 4 times a positive 5. So therefore, following that rule, my answer is going to be a negative 20. Same here. I have a 6 times a negative 6 following the rule. And now notice my negatives are in different spots. and it's smaller and bigger, that doesn't matter. What matters is the amount of negative signs that I have. Okay, and so since I only have one here, my answer is going to be a negative 36. Same over here when I look at division. I have a divided by a negative b. I only have one negative here, so my answer is going to be negative. Okay, now looking at 56 divided by a negative 7, that's going to be a positive 8. Because I have only one negative sign, and I know from my rule up here that an odd number of negatives will equal a negative answer. And now I have negative 18 divided by 3. That's going to be a positive 6. There again, if I look, it doesn't matter which one is larger as far as the opposite value is concerned. What I am concerned about is the amount of negative signs that we have. Alright? These rules are also on your purple sheet that you have with the integer rules. So make sure you look at that and have that while you're solving these out if you have questions. Okay, so when I'm writing real world problems, and real world problems are hard to write sometimes, but all it is simply a story problem. Because it's one thing that you guys can solve these without a problem, but what I'm wanting you guys to do also is to think about how can I use this in the real world setting. So if I look at negative 3 times positive 5, I can say that I lost 3, better help if I spell it right, 3 $5 bills. So altogether, I lost $15. Okay? That would be a real world situation that somehow 3 $5 bills fell out of my wallet. And so that meant that altogether I lost $15 completely. Now let's look at this next one. I have a negative 6 times a negative 3. Well, I know that's going to be a positive 18. Okay? But, so let's see how that works. Playing the integer game, which we've talked about it a little bit, that's the one with the cards. So I remove 6 negative 3s from my hand. Okay? And because of that, my score increased by a positive 18. So I had 6 negative 3 cards in my hand. Somehow I was able to get rid of them. So I removed them, and now I have my score in my hand went up by 18 points. Okay, here's another one. And I'm going to relate this to me because I'm trying to work on losing some weight. And so if I lose 7 pounds per month, that's a pretty good amount to lose. And I'm going to do this for 4 months. Okay? My weight will then change, okay, by a negative 28 pounds. Meaning that after 4 months, 4 months of losing 7 pounds, I'm going to have lost 28 pounds of total weight. Okay? This is just some 3 different ways that I could use real world problems and what I'm talking about with the integers. Alright, let's see. We talked about a little bit about multiplication. Let's continue looking at about division a little bit. In math, I've talked a lot about, different ways we can write things, different ways we can do things. And here I'm showing you a different representation of the same quotient. Remember, quotient is the answer to a division problem. So what I did is I wrote this problem 3 different ways, and it's all going to equal the same thing. Because if I go 14 divided by 7, alright, sorry, excuse me. negative 14 divided by 7, that is going to be a negative 2, because I have one negative sign here. Okay? Conversely, 14 divided by a negative 7, that's still going to equal a negative 2. Well, we've talked about these two settings, haven't we? Because I only have one negative sign, my answer is negative. Well, now here I have 7 inside my parentheses. I have more than just a number. Well, now let's look. I have 14 divided by 7. Well, 14 divided by 7 is 2. You would be correct in thinking that. However, I have a negative on the outside of my parenthesis sign. Remember, this is like a negative 1. A negative 1 times a positive 2 is going to be a negative 2. So here I have shown you 3 different ways I could write the same problem, but still be getting the same answer. Alright? Now, this is all the lesson really is. It's pretty short, pretty easy. You need to make sure that you are writing your whisk form and bringing your summary and your notes to class. I will see you in class.